In this video, we're going to learn how to use prototypes in Figma. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to select an iOS UI kit, which we can easily find also on the community panel. And after that, we can simply select iOS. And once we have a base, we're going to simply go on the prototyping section on the top right. Now, this is going to enable us to use the prototyping features, which are going to be essentially shown whenever you select a given frame. So the moment that I select the frame and I'm in prototyping mode, you can see that at the very bottom and also on the sides and on the top, you're going to see these anchor points. Now, if I select this anchor point and I drag it on to the next frame, you can see that we created our very first connection. Now, connections are going to be fundamental in order to dictate which screen is going to be connected to which other screen. Now, there's a few different options. As you can see on the very top left, you're going to find the menu which enables you to dictate what type of interaction is needed in order to create that connection. By default, it's going to be on click. And this essentially means that whenever I click on something, in this case, it's going to be this frame, I'm going to be redirected to the very next screen. Now, this is one of the most common manners of creating the prototype interactions, but another really useful one is while hovering. So when hovering, you're going to be either redirected or there's going to be a change of state. For the time being, we're simply going to use onClick so that we can have more granular, more granular, let's say, ability whenever we are presenting to a colleague or a stakeholder or a team member this prototype. So let's say that on click, I'm going to navigate to, which is this one right here. There's also all sorts of different values, which we're going to explore in more advanced videos, but for the time being, we're simply going to stick to navigate to 02, which is this frame right here. And here we can decide if the interaction is going to be instantaneously, if there's going to be a dissolve, a smart animate, move in, move out, or even push or slide. These are all different types of interactions. So if I go over here and I click on the play button, you're going to see what this means. So I'm going to wait a moment for the prototype to load up. And as you can see, we now have this icon with the very first screen. If I click anywhere, I'm going to be redirected to the second screen. Now, if I go ahead and I change the interaction to dissolve, I can go ahead, I can click on R in order to restart the prototype. If I click again, I'm going to see this dissolve pattern. Now, if I try Smart Animate, which is a smart way that Figma uses to create animations, which is absolutely mind-blowing in some instances. You're going to use a lot of Smart Animate. You can see that Figma is creating an animation based on its preference. And over here, you can also select the duration of the animation, as well as the type of ease feature, which you might want to consider. So let's go ahead and let's connect the rest of the prototype. So we're going to go over here. We're simply going to keep Smart Animate for the time being. I use Smart Animate a lot because a lot of the times it creates really smooth and nice animations, which will be really time consuming and difficult to recreate from scratch in Figma. So this is definitely a really nice prototyping feature that we have. And actually, if we go back into the prototype, you can see that the moment that I click on the different pages this prototype is going to essentially animate for the very most part with dissolve, because smart animate would imply having one element in one screen, the same element in the other screen. It's going to basically bridge the gap in between. But since we're dealing with a lot of different elements, smart animate for the very most part is going to create a dissolve. Now this is all good, but we want to go one step ahead in the prototype and make it even more live, so that it won't work just when I click on anywhere in the screen, but when I select a specific element, such as a button or a call to action. So I'm going to use Command Z, go one step back, and now we're going to make the prototype even better. Now, in the very first one, I'm going to, instead of selecting the on click, I'm going to have it while hovering, and this is going to basically make the interaction as if it's loading up the initial screen and then it's moving to the other one. And I'm going to make it at 500 milliseconds, so it's going to take a while. Now let's try and do that again. The moment that I hover, you can see that the main screen is now loading. Now at this point, if I go ahead and select this button, which I'll need to group in order to have a solid interaction point, and then I grab this connection point and I create it over here, you can see now that I can actually create an interaction point which is much more similar to the real life. So if I click over here, now it's going to load up the very next screen. Now we're going to do the exact same thing also for this button. So let's drag it right here, and this one again, since it's going to be the calculator, and let's do the same also for this one. So if you go over here, you can see how now if I click anywhere in the page, I won't be able to go to the next screen, but Figma is giving me a hint that this is the action point, the hotspot that I need to select in order to go to the next screen. So overall, this is going to give you all of the basic for you to create a prototype. Now, before we move on to another important feature, which is customizing the phone itself and also the background, I want to let you know that in future videos, and we're going to explore also some more advanced features, but for the very most part, after a decade being in this field, the vast majority of prototypes are going to likely be simple, especially since clients are likely going to want these for presentation purposes and not to create the absolute final solution in most instances. So with these options, you're totally going to be able to create great prototypes. Now, that being said, let's deselect everything. So I'm simply going to click over here in the canvas, and once you go on the top right, you're going to be able to find the type of device. So you can change the device and also the type of model. So you can change the color. By default, the iPhone 11 Pro in this case is going to be gold. And if you go back, you can see that the device has now been updated. And if you change the color, say space gray, it's going to update accordingly. And you can also change the orientation, which as you can see here, it's not really going to do much in this case, since the designs are in portrait mode and not landscape mode. But if you are looking to test a mobile design in landscape mode, this is the way that you can do it. And if you go back, we can also change the background color. So say that I want a lighter background, sort of a bluish gray. I can easily do that. It's going to update accordingly. Now, one more element which is important is the flow. Now, you can create multiple flows, but for the very most part, the important thing to keep in mind is that if you select this element, you're going to dictate which is going to be the starting screen of the flow, so that you can have a minute detail and the ability to organize the flows, so that if I go back and I use restart, you are actually going to start, or actually, if I select this flow, you're going to start from that very screen. So this is pretty much it when it comes to the basics of prototypes in Figma. Once you're done with the prototype, you can easily share the prototype via email to team members, stakeholders, or external members. And the same share options are going to apply as any Figma file. So if you want to learn more about that, I shot another separate video in the course. So this is pretty much it for this video, and I'll see you in the very next